My way of expressing what ethical conduct is, in a very modern way, is stop being a jerk. When we act in unethical ways, we're being a jerk. People would call us a jerk. So we have to stop that. That's kind of the beginning. Because if we can't get our act together, what else can we do on the spiritual path? How can you develop any other good qualities if we can't restrain ourselves from the negative ones? So it is a gradual path. Oh, but it takes so long. I want to be an arhat now. I want to be a Buddha now. And the path is too difficult. Okay, who are you going to complain to? Are you going to go to the Buddha and say, Buddha, this path is too long and it's too hard. I need something simpler. Because the Buddha didn't create the path. He described the path. He described the result of practicing the path.
And in the meantime, please feel free to suffer.
Yes, you can suffer all you want to. It's free.
Mahamune soha Jaya Chao Mune Mune Mahamune soha.
Good evening, dear Venerable.
Hello, Meng. I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good, except I'm not pretty, but otherwise I'm good.
Okay. When are you going to come visit us at the Abbey?
Oh, good question. Someday.
Sunday? Oh, that's tomorrow.
But I didn't say which Sunday.
You better get on their flight quick.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay, I'm going to do my... Venerable, are you ready? I'm going to do my thing. Okay. My thing.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Friends, Friends, welcome to episode 43 of Vibe with Venerables, 1 hour of live Dharma and dialogue where you get to talk directly to a respected Venerable. I'm Meng, co-founder of Buddhism-dot-net and your host. Friends, today is a very auspicious day because today is Choko Duchen, which marks the day the Buddha gave his very first teaching. And it also marks the day that Venerable Chodron is giving a very first teaching. So this is very nice. And on this very auspicious day, we have everybody's most beloved teacher, Venerable Thubten Chodron. Venerable Chodron is the founder and abbess of Sarvasti Abbey, co-author of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion with the Dalai Lama, and an example of wisdom and compassion for all of us. And today, Venerable Chodron will kick off our series on the 3 higher trainings, virtue, samadhi, and wisdom. The Buddha once said that the 3 main duties of every monastic is to undertake the 3 higher trainings. The 3 higher trainings are also found in all main schools of Buddhism, and they are the core practices for every Buddhist practitioner. So they are that important. And over the next few months, we'll be exploring these 3 higher trainings with our teachers from Sarvasti Abbey. And we are very lucky that we have Venerable Thubten Chodron to start our series today. Venerable will talk for roughly 30 minutes and answer your questions live. And friends, there's a Q&A board on Zoom. For those of you on Zoom, if you like to, as Venerable speaks, please feel free to type in your question on the Q&A board. So we also have a live audience, as you may notice. So we'll be taking questions from both, and they're more live than you on Zoom. So they're a liver audience. So and if you're comfortable doing so, my friends, we'd like to invite you to turn your camera on so that you can be seen by Venerable Chodron, and Venerable Chodron loves to see you. So with that, Venerable, can we invite you to start us off with a blessing?
Okay, thank you, Meng. Okay, so we will do Refuge and Bodhicitta to take refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha. and then also generate bodhicitta, the aspiration to attain full awakening for the benefit of each and every sentient being. So with Refuge, we're showing the direction of our spiritual practice, and with bodhicitta, we're affirming why we're doing our spiritual practice.
I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger.
So take a moment, come back to your breath, let the mind settle. Okay. So, if I understood my assignment from Meng properly, it is to give an introduction to the 3 higher trainings. Is that right? Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
please.
Now I get
Yes.
to salute to you.
Yes. Okay, all 3, if you don't mind.
Okay. So the 3 higher trainings, when we take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the Sangha, the Dharma is the main refuge because it's by actualizing the Dharma in our own mind stream that we can become arhats, we can become Buddhas, we can be free of samsara. Okay? Then when you say, you have among the Dharma refuge true paths, if you divide true paths or categorize them, you come up with the 3 higher trainings. Okay? So ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom. So ethical conduct, we start with ethical conduct because my way of expressing what ethical conduct is, in a very modern way, is stop being a jerk. Okay? In other words, when we act in unethical ways, when we are killing or lying or sleeping around or stealing or, any kind of unethical, harmful action, that we're being a jerk. People would call us a jerk. Okay, wouldn't they? Yeah. So we have to stop that. That's kind of the beginning. Yeah. Because if we can't get our act together and behave like good human beings, then what else can we do on the spiritual path? Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, how can you develop any other good qualities if we can't stop and restrain ourselves from the negative ones that all religions, all people, whether they have a faith or not, say we should abandon because they harm others. And in doing so, when we harm others, we also harm ourselves. Okay? We harm ourselves in two ways. First of all, when we, let's say, gossip behind somebody's back or interfere in their relationships or tell them off to their face or humiliate them or something like that, afterwards, when we're alone with ourselves and we think about our own behavior, we don't feel good about what we've done. Okay? And so this not keeping good ethical conduct actually contributes to low self-esteem. It contributes to many people, not so much in Asia, but in the West, people suffer a lot from self-deprecation and self-hatred. And so when we don't, behave properly and we know it and we feel bad about it, but we don't want to admit it, then it comes out in this very detrimental way of lacking our own confidence in ourselves. Okay? When we don't have confidence in ourselves, it's going to be hard to practice the rest of the path. Okay? Because we say, I can't do it, it's too hard, I'm not good enough, blah, blah. Okay? So keeping ethical conduct is the basis. There's different kinds of ethical conduct. There's the pratimoksha, which is the monastic precepts and also the 5 lay precepts that many of you have. Then there's the bodhisattva ethical conduct. And then there's the ethical conduct that we find in Tantra. So there's 3 different levels, like 3 different levels of practice, too. Another reason, another way in which acting like a jerk, acting unethically harms us, is we create negative karma, and all the when we create negative karma, we're putting the seeds in our own mind stream to have bad rebirths. If we, have a lower rebirth, it's going to be very difficult to practice. We have 4 cats at the Abbey. We try and teach them ethical conduct. Don't chase mice. They want to live as much as you do. And our cats look at us like, what are you talking about? So, it's hard to really practice the path in the animal realm, let alone in the hungry ghost realm or the hell realm. Okay, so we want a good rebirth. The way to gain that, the basic thing we have to do is keep good ethical conduct. Also, when we keep good ethical conduct, we develop two mental factors that are very important for practicing concentration and later wisdom. So these 2 mental factors are mindfulness and introspective awareness. Okay? So mindfulness, what mindfulness means is different according to whether you're practicing it in as part of ethical conduct, part of concentration, or part of wisdom. In terms of ethical conduct, mindfulness remembers our precepts. It remembers our determinations and our aspirations for how we want to live, how we want to behave, what kind of relationships we want to have with other people so that we can, act as a proper friend or a proper companion to others without being obnoxious. So mindfulness knows the precepts. It knows what we want to do, and it keeps us aware in our mind of those things. Introspective awareness, checks up on what am I actually doing now? What am I thinking? What am I saying? Okay, so introspective awareness here, it's like a little spy that is aware of what, our three doors, our body, speech, and mind are doing. Okay, so this is very helpful, these two, for keeping good ethical conduct, because we have to remember our precepts, remember the 10 non-virtues, remember how we want to act, remember the 10 virtues, that we want to practice. So that's mindfulness. And then we have to be aware during our life, am I doing that, or am I acting in a non-virtuous way? Am I breaking my precepts? Am I essentially acting like a jerk? Okay, so that's how mindfulness and introspective awareness operate in ethical conduct. And like I said, the chief result of ethical conduct, as we practice it as ordinary beings, is a good rebirth, which is really important. We need that so that we can continue our spiritual practice. Okay, then, based on keeping good ethical conduct, we have less mental turmoil, because I think a lot of people's mental turmoil, confusion in their mind comes because we haven't acted very well with regard to other people, or we've broken our promises, or we've harmed others intentionally. And so if we can't control our mind to stop our body and speech, from misbehaving, how are we going to develop concentration, which is working with our mind, which is a much more subtle way of having to practice than just monitoring our body and speech? Okay, you with me so far? So then we need the tools that we learn when practicing ethical conduct, so that we could practice them when we practice to develop concentration too. Okay, so we need the tools such as how to overcome, or how to at least, deal with our anger, how to restrain our attachment, what to do with jealousy or confusion in our mind. Okay, so these kinds of things that we start to work with when we're keeping ethical conduct, they automatically make our mind more peaceful. Because we're not having all these thoughts of, oh, I want to harm somebody, or I did gossip, my goodness, I said something terrible about somebody behind their back and now I feel terrible about it. Or, oh, I want to get revenge against somebody else for what they do. Those kind of non-virtuous, thoughts and actions in our mind get acted out in ethical conduct, and they will distract us when we are practicing concentration too. That's why ethical conduct comes first, okay? Because we learn at least to regulate our body and speech there. Okay. Then when we sit down to develop concentration, when distractions come up, then we know how to handle the distractions. And that's one thing I think we've all seen when we're beginners at meditation, and actually for many years after that. You sit down to meditate, And even you just want to watch your breath. How many breaths can you get before your mind starts wandering? And do we even notice that our mind is wandering? And what do we do when it's wandering or when it's falling asleep or whatever? Okay. So here, when we're trying to generate shamatha and develop concentration, or I translate shamatha as serenity, then the mindfulness holds our mind to the object upon which the object meditation that we're using to develop serenity. Okay? So you can see that it's still mindfulness, but what we're mindful of in meditation is a bit different than what we were mindful of in ethical conduct. Okay? So you sit down to meditate, then your mindfulness knows what your object of meditation is. Yeah. And so, it has to be one object. You don't want to start changing your object of meditation because you're not going to get single-pointed if the object keeps changing. Okay? And of course, our mind starts playing tricks with us there too, because we want to change the object of meditation. Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be, doing the breath. Well, and it says not to deep breathe, but I feel like deep breathing, And so, we don't follow instructions. Yeah. So what helps us notice when we're not following instructions is introspective awareness. Okay? Because it is, mindfulness holds the object of meditation. Introspective awareness, our little spy, it's like one little corner of the mind. It observes, are we on our meditation object, or are we falling asleep? Are we distracted? Is there some emotion that's taking over and, we're out to lunch? Okay, so there, mindfulness, introspective awareness, very, very important. Yeah. So we start developing them with ethical conduct. We continue when we're developing concentration. Then we move on, then there's wisdom. Okay, and wisdom, there's many different kinds of wisdom. There's the wisdom that knows conventional wisdom, how to do things in society, how to, evaluate situations. But the kind of wisdom that will liberate us from samsara is the wisdom understanding selflessness or emptiness. Okay? So this is much more difficult to develop. First we have to get a correct intellectual understanding, intellectual is not a good word, the correct conceptual understanding of what emptiness is, what selflessness is, and also what it isn't. And this is not so easy because our minds very easily go to the two extremes. Either we make things very concrete and inherently existent, or we go to the other extreme and we say, nothing exists. Especially, people hear the word emptiness. Well, there's nothing there. Yeah. And that's a really dangerous extreme to fall into. So it's really important when we're developing wisdom, that we receive teachings, we discuss them, we make sure that first we have a good conceptual understanding. Then we can really start to meditate on, selflessness, or even on impermanence, or even on the unsatisfactory nature of the body. Okay? So we need wisdom combined with concentration to really penetrate those topics. But we have to start first with a conceptual understanding. Okay, so often people come to Dharma and, we hear about meditation. I want to learn to meditate. Okay, I'm going to sit there. And I breathe. Why isn't anything happening? Oh, they say I can develop concentration easily, and then I'll experience bliss. Where's the bliss? I'm missing the bliss, Yeah. And, why do we get distracted like this? It's because we haven't studied. We don't know the path. We don't understand what ethical conduct is, what concentration is, what wisdom is trying to do. Okay? So that's why the Buddha also talks about the wisdoms of hearing, the wisdoms of contemplating or thinking about the teachings, and the wisdom of meditating. And we develop them in that order, in the same way that we develop ethical conduct first, and then concentration, and then the wisdom. Now, when we say that the three higher trainings are developed in that order, that does not mean that when you're developing ethical conduct, you ignore concentration and ignore wisdom, or that you can't think about wisdom at all until you get your ethical conduct down perfect. No, it doesn't mean that. So we emphasize in our practice, we emphasize one, but we also, in our practice, include parts of the other two. Okay, this is quite important, because if you just think, okay, I'm just doing ethical conduct, and we start out, watching our body and speech, that's good, but we should also do some meditation practice. And we should also do some study, and we should think a little bit about selflessness. We should practice the antidotes to the distractions. Okay, so there's actually a lot of things to do in our practice, our Dharma practice. Sometimes when we hear about this, it's like, there's so many things I have to understand, so many things I have to do. How am I going to do it? I want liberation now. Maybe not liberation, just the bliss of concentration. I got to get out of, I'm so unhappy now. We're kind of approaching things in a little bit cattywampus way, upside down way. Okay. So we may focus on our ethical conduct, but we also study, discuss the teachings, meditate on them. We also practice some concentration, and we practice some wisdom. Okay, even though the emphasis is on the first one. Okay, you got that all? When we we always also hear about the Eightfold Noble Path. By the way, when they say noble, what it means, what the English translation actually isn't so correct. I don't know about you. When I hear noble, I think of, what is it, King Charles and Queen Elizabeth and, their nobility. No, it doesn't mean that you become a noble like that. Actually, the word in Sanskrit is Arya. It refers to somebody who has directly realized selflessness. Okay, so these are, when we talk about the Four Noble Truths, I usually just say Four Truths. These are things that are understood by the Aryas. We're not Aryas yet, But we think about and practice those things because how else are we going to become Aryas if we don't start at the beginning and practice them? Okay? Same with concentration, same with wisdom. Yeah, we have to start at the beginning and develop all these qualities gradually. Yeah. So it is a gradual path. And sometimes I encounter people who say, oh, but it takes so long, you know. I want to be an arhat now. I want to be a Buddha now. It takes so long, and the path is too difficult. Too difficult, La. I want a simpler path. Yeah. And I usually say to people when they say that, it's like, okay, who are you going to complain to? Are you going to go to the Buddha and say, Buddha, this path is too long and it's too hard. I need something simpler. Yeah. Aren't you supposed to teach me according to my disposition? Simple, please. Yeah. Well, if you want to complain to the Buddha, go ahead. I don't really want to, okay? Because the Buddha didn't create the path. He didn't create arhatship, or he didn't create Buddhahood. He described the path. He described the result of practicing the path. Okay? So we shouldn't complain to the Buddha. Yeah? Okay. When we talk about the Eightfold Noble Path, or the Eightfold Path that the Aryas have realized, yeah, it has 8 parts, but those 8 parts can be subsumed in the 3 higher trainings. Okay, so the higher training of ethical conduct subsumes correct action and correct speech and correct livelihood, or right livelihood. So those are all things that contain mostly with our body and speech. Yeah. When you start practicing wisdom, then you see those things also as empty. Okay. Then, so those are 3 of the 8. Then right mindfulness and right concentration. Those are the higher training of concentration. And then right view and right intention are the higher training in wisdom. Okay, so it's interesting when you really get a good purview of the path and the different components, then you can see how all these things interrelate. Yeah, and how they we like to think of things as very discrete categories, but they aren't, you know. They get merged, we practice them together, and so on. So I just looked at the clock, and I remember last time I gave a talk on Vibe with Venerables, somebody interrupted me and told me to be quiet. Well, he said it more politely. Your time is up. Right? So, yeah. So I'm self-restrained. This is part of my ethical discipline. And so now you can ask questions.
Thank you, Venerable. Well, actually, we all love you, so you can have as much time as you want. and people have questions, so let's out of compassion for them. Let's give them some time.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay, friends, as Venerable has said this, let's begin our discussion session. If you have any questions for the Venerable or any reflection you want to share, please feel free to use the hand raising function in Zoom. Or if you are in person, like in person, you can raise your hand in physically and Venerable can point to you. Or if you want to, you can use the Q&A function on Zoom and type the questions there. Or if the question has already been asked, you can just upvote the question that you like. So with that, Micah has a question. So let's begin with Micah. Micah, please unmute yourself.
Okay, my question, hello, Venerable. My
Yes.
question is, I'm doing my Buddhist practice and I feel dukkha. Is that normal? And is there a point where I don't feel dukkha anymore?
Oh, feeling dukkha is totally normal. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're samsaric beings, and samsara is the nature of being unsatisfactory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
is there a point where I don't feel it?
Later on in the path. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. When you are free of all dukkha. Okay. When you attain arhatship. Okay.
Okay.
Or if following the Mahayana path, you're completely free of all dukkha when you reach the 8th ground. Okay. Until then, we have all sorts of different forms of dukkha. Yeah. Totally natural. Unnatural. Yeah. I mean, for ordinary beings, this is our life. But the thing is, yeah, we can either throw a temper tantrum and say, I don't want to experience dukkha, get it away, give me a pill to take it away. And Buddha can't do that, okay? Buddha, the way Buddha benefits us is by teaching us the Dharma, because this is a mental problem, okay? Why are we in samsara? Because we have ignorance. We misapprehend how we exist. We misapprehend how the things around us exist. So of course, when we're not seeing things properly the way they are, yeah, then we create a lot of negative karma through getting attached to things, through getting angry and upset with things, and so on. So the trick is, yeah, as you learn the Dharma and you learn the different steps in the path, then when different forms of dukkha arise, you apply an antidote. Yeah, and in that way, you take your dukkha and make it part of your path. Okay, because usually if we just stay in our dukkha, what do? We either get angry because we're unhappy, or we feel sorry for ourselves and we throw a huge pity party. Yeah, when we throw a pity party, when we are angry, we can't practice the Dharma. Our minds are overwhelmed by, these kinds of, disturbing emotions. So, we have to, apply the antidotes. Applying the antidotes that we learned from the Buddhist teachings, that is Dharma practice. Yeah. So, we often hear about the higher practices and we think, oh, okay, the union of concentration, of the union of serenity and insight. Yes, that will lead me to liberation. I want to do that now. What is insight? How do I develop concentration? So you see, we need to study and learn first. Then we may need to make sure we understand things properly, and then we put it into practice in our life. Okay, and at that time, we start being able to transform dukkha into the path to awakening. And because we're changing our non-virtuous mind, that we usually have when there's a lot of dukkha, we drop that, we oppose that, and we have a virtuous mind when we practice the antidotes. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure,
Thank you.
don't give up.
Thank you. Don't give up. And in the meantime, please feel free to suffer.
Please feel to what?
Feel free to suffer.
Oh, yes. Yes, you can suffer all you want to. It's free.
It's like a suffering buffet. You can eat all you want.
Yes. Choose your suffering. Do you want relationship problems? Do you want job problems? Do you want family problems? Oh, there's so many different kinds you can choose. Okay, Neil, you have your hand up.
Yes, Neil, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Venerable. This morning, I just finished the audiobook Buddhism for All. So I've enjoyed Meng immensely over the last while. Though I think there's a little bit of a mistake. Meng talked about the stream that you can enter to begin this journey. It's more like a rapids to reading that book, or a fire hose. So I'm thinking, what next? Now, I'm very fortunate because I only live a 2-hour drive from the Abbey. I'm north of you in Republic, Washington. So I will offer Meng, when he flies to Spokane, I can pick him up and deliver him to there. But I think I need a guide. It's pretty, just like when you go running the rapids, it's very dangerous. But if you go on a big boat with a guide, it's safer. So,
oh yeah,
where do I find one?
I have a recommendation. Venerable Chodron, she's the best teacher ever. Wow.
Okay. But she might be busy. Maybe she can assign somebody.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, we need teachers. Yeah, because if we need teachers to learn how to type and to learn how to drive, attaining spiritual realizations is a lot more difficult than those two things. So if we need teachers for those, we definitely need teachers to show us how to work with our mind. Yeah, and that's quite important. If you live close to the Abbey, tomorrow we have Sharing the Dharma Day. You're very welcome to come. Yeah, or we have different courses going on. Come and join us. We also have a program called Sravasti Abbey Friends Education, or SAFE. And so you can write to us and enroll in that program. That one you can do at home. Okay, so there's lots of ways. And, if you live in Washington State, we're kind of in your backyard, huh? Yeah, just don't send any smoke over. Okay, it was really smoky here yesterday.
And we got your smoke because it's smoky here today too. But that's one of those passing dukkha things.
Okay, good.
Okay,
good.
I'll get onto your website and explore and find the path. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we start tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Yeah, we have meditation at 10. Yeah, a Dharma talk at 11. Potluck lunch. And then we have discussion in the afternoon. And then you can even get a tour of our new Buddha Hall.
How often do you do this type of...
We do the Sharing the Dharma Day once a month.
Okay.
Yeah, on a Sunday. And then if you go to the website, we have teachings in Spokane, in Newport. We have things online. There's a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can't make it tomorrow, but next month would be good.
Okay, good.
It's a 2-hour drive, but you say it starts at 10, so it'll work. Yeah.
But you can also stay overnight. People come and stay with us for a few days.
Wonderful.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Neil.
You're welcome.
Venerable, we have a question online, and this is a very good question, and it's very short. The question, only 3 words. Does suffering help?
Help what?
I think the intent behind this question is suffering like helpful for the path?
If you say it like that, it sounds like, oh, I should go out and get a lot of suffering because it's going to help me on the path. You don't need to do that, okay? We don't need to go out to look for dukkha, yeah? Dukkha comes naturally, it comes free, quick, cheap, easy, just what we want, dukkha comes, okay? Unsatisfactory conditions come. Okay? The trick, like I just said before, is to recognize them. And instead of falling into anger because we want to be happy and not have problems, or instead of, medicating our problems with alcohol or drugs, yeah, and instead of having a pity party over them, when we know the path, we know, okay, for example, okay, I'm really angry at somebody. Yeah, what's the antidote to anger? Yeah, it's fortitude, sometimes translated as patience. Where am I going to learn fortitude? Okay, doesn't mean I just okay, I'm angry, but I'm just going to bear through it. No, that doesn't, you're still angry. Then that's why you need a teacher who will, teach you the different ways to think about the situation so that if you're already angry, your anger diminishes. And when you get really good at this, understanding this teaching, then you don't get so angry to start with, which is really nice. Okay, so, instead of saying, that suffering helps, we could say the path helps us when we are suffering. How about that?
That's a good one.
Yeah,
thank you.
The teachings.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
So, Venerable, previously you were joking with Neil about the smoke. You reminded me of a conversation I had with Venerable Thubten Chodron, because we were talking about vibe with Venerables, and then somebody mistakenly say vice with Venerables. I was like, we should start a series called Vice with Venerables. We just go to the back of the temple and smoke together. Vice. No, don't do that. I'm kidding.
Yeah, a vice with Venerables? Oh, God. No.
No vice.
No vice. Okay. It's a vibe. Vibe. Okay.
Okay. We have another question from a Q&A board.
Okay.
This person asks, what is a good way to invite non-Buddhist friends to the Buddha's teachings so that they can walk the path together? Also, that we can walk the path together.
Okay, can you repeat that?
How can we invite friends that are not Buddhists to walk the path?
Oh, how can we invite friends who aren't Buddhists to walk the path? Well, you go there and you threaten them with going to hell if they don't.
Let me take that down.
That's what some religions do. Yeah, either you practice this or you know what's going to happen to you. No, we don't do that. Okay. There's several ways to get our friends interested. One way, especially with your family, people, when they come to the Abbey, they attend a retreat, they go back home, they say, how can I get my parents especially, to be interested in the Dharma? And I tell them, take out the garbage. What? Taking out the garbage is going to get my parents interested in the Dharma? You bet it will, because for 40 years, They've been asking you to take out the garbage and you haven't done it. You go to a Buddhist retreat, you come back and you take out the garbage and your family goes, we like Buddhism. Yeah, Buddhism is great. How can we learn? Yeah. So really, with your family, especially, you act, you stop being a jerk. Yeah, and you help. You help other people, you're kind to other people, you're not talking behind people's back and getting involved in all the family dramas of who's mad at who. You stay out of all of that. Yeah, and then your family begins to see that you've changed and they get interested. Okay, another thing to do, one friend told me that she accidentally, left a Buddhist book she was reading on the coffee table at her home. And her sister, who was a Christian, happened to pick it up and read it, and her sister came to her and said, wow, you have some of the same values we do. Buddhism is interesting. Yeah, okay. So sometimes you can just, don't leave a complicated book on the coffee table. Leave one of the free distribution introductory books. Oh, yes, we got to plug Buddhism for All. Except I remember when Venerable Thubten and I read that book, and we told you you left some important points out, Meng.
Yes, those are the harder ones for you to teach them.
But you got to start somewhere, even when it's hard. Mm-hmm. So, show through your behavior, leave things there, introductory books, they might pick them up, they might not. Sometimes I found with my parents, when they met my friends, then they really opened up to Buddhism, because they thought that I was a little bit quirky for being interested in Buddhism. I was supposed to do my career and have children and the whole 9 yards. And my parents were saying, what happened to you? But one time I was living in Hong Kong and my parents came to visit, and I had some friends who had a business in Hong Kong, and they invited my parents out to lunch, and my parents had such a good discussion with my friends. He said afterwards, oh, your friends are so nice. Implication being, what happened to you? But that really opened the door to them. And you can invite them to, a teaching, and they might become interested.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Venerable. I think we have time for one last question, and I think this is a good one. Venerable, this person asks, what do we do if we feel that we plateaued on a Buddhist path after practicing for a long time?
Well, you feel you've plateaued. Then you ask yourself, am I a Buddha? If the answer is yes, okay, you're at a good plateau. If the answer is no, then, well, what am I deficient in? Am I being, just ignoring my precepts and not practicing well? Am I skipping my daily practice? Am I going to retreats? Have I talked to my teacher about this and asked for help? Then you have to ask, what is it that I need to do to get me out of the plateau? Because when you plateau, you get kind of complacent. Yeah. And then when you're complacent, you get sloppy. Okay. Then you start to notice your sloppiness in your practice. And then that becomes, lets you know that you have to, come back and put more energy into your practice and not be so self-satisfied.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
There's other times, where we're not on a plateau, but we have a spiritual crisis. Yeah. Anybody had a crisis in their practice? Yeah. This is very common. And I remember I asked many years ago when I was a baby nun, I met a Catholic nun who had been ordained for many, many years. And I asked her, how do you handle the crisis in your practice where all of a sudden some doubt comes up, or you get angry at somebody, or something happens? And she said, when you have a crisis, some kind of negativity of mind boiling over, or you're really depressed or something, she said, that means that you're actually ready to grow. Yeah. She said, don't be, dismayed when you have a crisis, because it means that, you reached a certain point, but now you're ready to look deeper and to go deeper. Yeah. So when you have that kind of doubt coming up, or internal conflict or dissatisfaction, look at it like that. Now I can go deeper in my practice. What aspects of my practice have I been kind of, complacent on, where I really need to go back and delve into them more?
That's a beautiful point, Venerable. And coming from a Christian nun makes it even more beautiful, because it shows a commonality in all our practices, regardless of religion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Venerable. Venerable, can I invite you to close this session with a blessing or a prayer?
Sure. First, I want to invite everybody who's listening to come and visit us at the Abbey. Okay. And you can look at our website. We have lots of things going on. Please come and visit us. And I see one Venerable just raised their hand.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Venerable, please unmute yourself.
I just want to say something. In my understanding, the morality supports the concentration, and the concentration supports the wisdom. However, in my own practice, I have realized that we cannot completely separate these the trainings from one another. And I think that the suffering is very helpful, because it helps us to look deeply into our minds, our emotions, and then we can see that they arise and stay for a while and then pass away. And when we see their nature, we can be easier to accept the sufferings and everything.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for your listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's true. Okay. So first, let's rejoice at the merit that we created as individuals and also as a group. Yeah, we spent an hour in a very good way with a good motivation doing something virtuous. So it's time to rejoice at what we did. And then we want to dedicate the merit In other words, steer the merit so according to how we want it to ripen, which is in us and all living beings to become fully awakened Buddhas.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha. We may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, friends. Venerable Chodron, do you have anything to add before I close this?
Anything I could add? Have a happy mind. Yeah. And how do you have a happy mind? By practicing the Dharma. Yeah. And don't see your Dharma practice as a lot of suffering. Oh, I got to wake up early in the morning. No, wow, how fortunate I am. I'm a human being. I've met the Dharma. I have all the good conditions to learn and to practice it. Yeah, this is great. So I want to take advantage of it, really to make our human lives meaningful, make them worthwhile, and not just spend them, going out with friends, making a lot of money, being popular, rising up the corporate ladder. Because when we die, none of those things come with us, and we create a lot of negative karma trying to get them. Whereas if we really keep our mind and try and develop a kind heart towards others and help others, then we're creating good karma, we feel happy inside, and that brings good results in this life and also future lives.
Thank you, Venerable. My friends, please bow to our teacher. Thank you so much, Venerable, for being with us today. Friends, as a reminder, this recording will be uploaded onto the Buddhism.net YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. And if you want to show your appreciation and gratitude to our teacher, Venerable Thubten Chodron, you may make a donation to Sarvasti Abbey. We will share the link by chat and by email. And next week, Venerable Lamsel will be here to guide us on the higher training of ethical conduct. And then the next three Venerables will talk about ethical conduct. So starting next week, don't miss it. Thank you, my friends.
And thank you very much, Meng. And I hope to see you when I'm in Singapore in December.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Thank you.